Hello and welcome to this week's Hem Productions podcast. I've caught up with a bunch of new releases this week, so it'll be a very movie-heavy episode, which is what you want in a movie podcast. The news this week hasn't been too exciting, although I do have a couple of stories that I'll briefly touch on. Then we'll read the box office, and then I can unload my thoughts on new releases from the past couple weeks. We got Roofman, Black Phone 2, The Travelers, and The Smashing Machine all to talk about. See if you can guess which one I'm most fond of. Now it's time for the news. So, the first story that caught my attention this week was Netflix buying the rights to the Settlers of Catan. If you're not aware, Settlers of Catan is a really popular board game which involves like city building, resource management, all that kind of stuff. You know, great movie potential. Netflix has a games division that I often forget about, but I actually quite like their approach to video games. They have video games you can play via streaming or download mobile games that have no ads or microtransactions, which is quite rare to find these days. You only really get those with services like Apple Arcade or Google Play Plus, so it's nice that it's included, no additional cost to Netflix. So when I saw the headline for the rights to Settlers of Catan, I assumed we'd be getting a Settlers of Catan mobile game or perhaps a TV interactive game, but apparently they've only bought the screen rights to the game. Much like Mattel is making a Magic 8 Ball TV show and a Hot Wheels movie in the wake of Barbie's success, I think Netflix is trying to get whatever IP they can take advantage of. They tried making a new blockbuster with new IP from the Russo brothers this year, The Electric State, and it's the worst movie of the year, so they're probably trying to look for other IP that they can adapt into blockbuster films. If they actually make anything with these rights, I'd be surprised if it's any better than The Electric State, but most likely I feel like these rights will just slip away and they'll never end up developing anything. There's really no story to the Settlers of Catan and not even that much like lore. I really don't know what they were thinking with this move. Anyway, in a better career decision, The Rock is teaming up once again with Benny Safdie. This week I saw The Smashing Machine, which was The Rock's first collaboration with Benny Safdie. A fantastic movie, but it's unfortunately done pretty poor at the box office. But this hasn't dampened The Rock's relationship with writer-director Benny Safdie. They've announced their next collaboration, which could prove to be even more transformative for The Rock. The Rock will be playing Chicken Man, a bloke in his 70s with a 111-year-old chicken, in Lizard Music, a movie about The Rock discovering a secret society of lizard musicians. I'm so excited by this announcement. It makes me want to read the book Lizard Music, which is a cult novel from 1976 by writer David Pinkwater. I'm glad The Rock is making films that push him more and hopefully will lead to more successful performances and films. But I doubt Lizard Music will be the box office success the two are looking for. That's it for the news. Let's get into the box office. So this week's box office mojo report is that everything's working fine. I managed to grab the top 10 for the Australian box office and we'll go through it just now. At number 1 we have the Black Phone 2. Black Phone 2, sorry. Drop the, it's cleaner. This was expected as horror always does gangbusters, usually at the top of the charts in Australia, but less than $1 million USD opening, which is pretty soft compared to Weapons or the latest Conjuring film, which has been doing much better here in Oz, but the numbers might double with the Halloween bump it'll surely get next week. Number 2 is Tron Ares with an almost 60% drop. This was expected due to the quality of the film, and I think it'll probably fall quite low quite quickly. Number 3 is One Battle After Another holding its spot, which is good to see. I think it having Leo and also, being the best movie of the year is giving it some box office legs, even if it isn't topping the charts. Number 4, we got Roofman, which is kind of a disappointing opening spot, but as I pointed out in my review to come, it's a bit of a hard movie to sell. Number 5, we have The Bad Guys 2 dropping down to number 5, which is expected with the school holidays wrapping up. Number 6, we have The Travelers, an Australian picture, which is holding its same position from last week, doing pretty steady as far as Australian films go. Number 7 is a re-release of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, an awesome movie to see this season. Number 8 is another Australian picture, Kangaroo, which has made a surprising amount of money here, meaning I better watch it before next week. Number 9 is Gabby's Dollhouse, and number 10 is After the Hunt, which is Luca Guadagnino's latest movie, which I will see as I liked both Queer and Challenges from last year. He also directed Bones and All and Call Me By Your Name with Timothée Chalamet, so he's quite a talented director, although After the Hunt hasn't been receiving the best reviews, still very curious to dig into it. Healthy and diverse box office overall this week, and nice to see a re-release in there as well. Plus, Box Office Mojo is seeming to be working, so at least somebody is on my side at that company or whoever collects that data. Maybe we should really investigate how we get that data. That's a future episode potential. Anyway, now let's get on to the movies that I've seen. So I managed to see 4 new releases this week. Very happy with that. And most of them are pretty average, to be honest, but there is one highlight in here. I already mentioned it, The Smashing Machine. Might as well start with that because it's what I'm most positive on this week. Despite being a king of Hollywood, The Rock hasn't always aligned himself with winning material. The story of Mark Kerr is finally a film that takes the physical gravitas of The Rock and twists it on its head to give us a beautiful performance in a wonderful movie. It's a film about addiction to both performance-enhancing drugs and the thrill of winning, the indescribable feeling of victory, and what it feels like to come off of Apex Mountain. What it feels like to go from strongest man in the world to man struggling with himself. The movie has been sold on its lead performance for good reason. Rock's physical, hulking presence, coupled with Mark's soft and careful way of speaking, is such obvious subversion, but undeniably captivating. In Mark's most quiet and vulnerable moments, The Rock really shines. He disappears into the world and really convincingly portrays a man addicted to not only being the best version of himself he can be, but also convincing other people that he is this great man. The Rock really sells the fall from grace, which is the primary drive of this movie. Whenever Kerr abuses drugs, The Rock leaves the screen, and you're just watching a man who could pulverize anyone who challenges him struggle to fight what he's doing to himself. The scenes where he's really whacked out on drugs is some of the best performance from him. Now, the film also stars Emily Blunt, and while her performance is captivatingly manic, I think she does a great job with the material she's given. I think her character is a little uneven. Now, perhaps that is a reality of the character they're dealing with, the real-life person that this is based on, but her behavior would seemingly dramatically shift. The tension between The Rock and Emily in this movie is who's the craziest one in the relationship at what time. And while The Rock's arc was quite clear and you could understand what he was going through, I felt sometimes Blunt was forced into the crazy, supportive wife of a fragile genius, similar to her performance in Oppenheimer. But the performance itself is very captivating, and her chemistry with The Rock is palpable. There's 2 types of fight scenes in this movie. You got the ones in the ring and the passive-aggressive shootouts between Mark and his wife. The scene involving a cactus being pruned is a contender for Scene of the Year, in my opinion. The whole movie is just such winning material. I can't help but be swept into a true-to-life sports story. I'll talk about Roofman lately, but that movie struggles with its real-life character. It has to carve a path to relatability. The Smashing Machine immediately has stakes you understand. Even if you have close to zero insight into MMA, the rising sports story is very simple to understand. And when it's twisted on its head like it is done in the movie, it's just so damn captivating. There's a reason we've been making boxing and wrestling pictures since the start of cinema. It is damn captivating. And this movie is a sports movie, filmed like a documentary. Shot brilliantly by Maceo Bishop. The fly-on-the-wall energy of this movie is palpable. We really feel like strangers peering into the world of these characters. It reminds me of the series Benny Safdie made with Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone, The Curse. Everyone is vulnerable, including the supporting cast that has real wrestlers playing famous fighters. The Rock's relationship with his best friend serves as a rival romance to him and Blunt, and is one of the most winning parts of the movie. Their connection, again, is palpable. Everything in this movie is made to look and feel real, and the actors really deliver. So it has action, it has this story, and these brilliant performances right at its core. I think it's a brilliant film of redemption for both Mark and The Rock, proving that when he cares about the material handed to him, he can deliver an award-worthy performance. Thanks to Benny Safdie's direction and sense of style, the movie punches far above its weight, delivering my favourite sports movie of the year. Fuck F1, go see The Smashing Machine. I'd give it about 4 out of 5 stars. Now we can talk about Roofman, which is another based on a true story film about a family man who chooses the wrong path to provide for his family. He's a pretty shitty criminal that doesn't want to hurt people. It's based on a story of a real criminal who broke through the roofs of McDonald's to rob their safes, but he didn't hurt anyone. He sort of put them in the freezer, left them there, and ran away. So a little bit of a cat burglar sort of story. He's eventually on the run and seeks refuge in a Toys R Us, and it quickly becomes his makeshift home. So I'm a huge Channing Tatum fan. If anyone's seen his directorial debut, Dog, which he co-directed and starred in, he's a brilliant actor, and he really knows good material. And I think this character is the perfect use of him. Channing Tatum is charming everyone's asses off in this crafty little comedy. I love survival movies, ones that feel like video games. Castaway is a great example of that. And Roofman is a survival story of a man living in a Toys R Us, and it's pretty damn funny. You know, he's stealing video games and pawning them off for cash. He's raiding the peanut M&M's drawers. He's wearing the cringy clothes he manages to find on shelves, constantly wearing like Scooby-Doo jumpers and stuff. And this is where the movie has the most juice. He sets up cameras, he dances around the store on wheelie shoes, starts spying on people and even helping some of the staff, leading him to pursue Kirsten Dunst's character. Channing Tatum is just the perfect actor for this movie. The lead character really, I think, is kind of a piece of shit. And overall, I think it's a movie about a broken person trying to find a sense of family. And Channing Tatum's puppy dog eyes always had me sympathizing with this guy, even when it wasn't clear if I should be. He's trying to be a family man, but fails at every opportunity and makes every wrong decision to try and get to that point. It's funny to see someone with so much physical presence and charisma feel so deeply for his child and stepchildren, and him fucking it up becomes even more tragic because of that. The supporting cast is also great. Dinklage plays the Toys R Us manager and has a few great outburst scenes. Dunst, I wish had more going for her as a character, but she does pass the assignment, of course. Brilliant actress. The movie runs out of steam when it becomes less about Toys R Us and surviving undercover, and more about Channing attempting to get a second life with a new family. I think the movie has to balance between the goofy Toys R Us mishaps and shenanigans with a sensitive film about a struggling, clearly broken man attempting to find some semblance of family in a world that he's clearly fucked up for himself. It does find a balance, but leaves the movie struggling for an identity. I'm not sure whether I recommend this as an action movie or a comedy, because it doesn't really have much of either. But if you're a fan of goofy, larger-than-life characters and stories, and if you're a fan of movies, then I'm sure you are, this is a serviceable film with a dynamite Channing Tatum lead performance. I'd give it about 3 out of 5 stars. Interesting, true story, and worth seeing on movies, but unlike The Smashing Machine, it doesn't really punch above its weight. Serviceable. Quite good, actually. It was from the same director of Blue Valentine and a few others, movies about broken people. And this gets that point across, I feel. So next I'll touch on Black Phone 2, which is the big release of the week. I thought the first Black Phone was a pretty average but thrilling kidnapper horror movie. It was based off a Stephen King short and it made a lot of money, and so of course we're getting a sequel. And it follows in the old Hollywood tradition of finding a new setting. So we head to a Christian summer camp in the winter, and it's very icy. This is the best kind of setting for a movie like this. Hell is icy cold in this movie. The first movie leaned into some supernatural elements, but the horror was grounded in real-world fears of a child being kidnapped, having no way of getting out, and the titular Black Phone being his only way of figuring a way out of this scenario. This movie fully leans into the supernatural elements in a less deadly but ultimately more satisfying thriller, in my opinion. It fully leans into its Nightmare on Elm Street vibes. It has these dream sequences that cut to gritty film for a character sleepwalking. And it has Ethan Hawke's, what's the name? The Grabber. Ethan Hawke's the Grabber fighting people in the dreams, but the people who aren't sleepwalking can't see this happening. And so they sort of just see people being thrown across the room and wrestled with. There are a lot more characters this time, with the lead from the last film's little sister and her prescience ability, along with her friend and a few camp counselors. It's a bit of a Goonies setup as they try and further connect this movie to the original. And that's my biggest problem here, is it's kind of needlessly complicated, and it leads to a moment in the movie where everything has to be explained to a fine point, and it kind of bursts the bubble a little bit. The action and horror is always pretty good. It's quite bloody, and I just love the icy setting. I think it delivers a lot more scares and thrills than the first movie, but it being so tied to that first movie does hold it back from being a much better sequel that I could go and tell everybody to rush and see. But if you're looking for something horror this year and you liked the Black Phone 1, or even if you just didn't see it or didn't care for it, I think the Black Phone 2 is much better and worth seeing. It's about a 3 out of 5 movie, my opinion. The Black Phone, though, itself is the best supporting actor of the year. And finally, unfortunately, probably, I wouldn't say disappointment because I didn't have that much hype for it, The Travellers, which is a local picture directed by legendary Australian director Bruce Beresford. He's probably best known for Driving Miss Daisy, which won Best Picture, but he also directed the brilliant Puberty Blues, one of the best Australian films ever made, among with plenty of 70s, 80s Aussie classics. Now, The Travellers is not quite in either film caliber, but it isn't trying to be. It's a small, grounded, seemingly autobiographical film about parents getting older and tall poppy syndrome. Luke Bracey plays the lead, an opera set designer returning to his local town in regional WA to greet his dying mother and see his dad and deal with the aftermath of this situation. His parents getting older and one of the parents being left to his own devices and his struggles with that. Now, the dad is the best part of the movie, played by Brian Brown. His slow mental decline over the course of the movie is what you're watching it for. Seeing his house, his way of living, it's classic old parents, regional town Australian stuff. It's a quiet movie overall, meandering between conversations about home, leaving Australia to pursue greater heights, and whether that makes you a good Aussie or not. The biggest problem with the movie is it's kind of low stakes. It sort of just quietly plops along until it abruptly ends. I found the lead performance to be a little unconvincing and ultimately a little too boring for the majority of the film to be weighed on. Brian Brown as the mentally declining father is a much better performance, and the movie could have been better if we focused on his position, but obviously, that's not what Bruce Beresford was trying to tell. He was trying to tell a story more about himself. But the highlight of the movie, and the reason I'm bringing it up on this very podcast, is that it was shot and filmed in WA. And our environment really speaks for itself, along with our beautiful cities, regional towns, and beaches. This is an Australian movie through and through. You can smell the eucalyptus and feel the wind hitting your face watching it. Beautiful vistas with kangaroos and trees. But the movie lacks a bit of tactility. It doesn't feel rooted in reality. This is what I tend to see with a lot of later directors making films back in Australia. Now that the sort of Ozploitation buzz is over, we don't have film, we don't have these people that are hungry to make sort of gritty, off-the-rails kind of movies. There's a very successful director making a very small movie, and it feels small, and it looks small, and it's a little stilted overall. The movie doesn't really get off the ground. It's not from a lack of trying. You can see the talent of Bruce Beresford being muffled by the budget and the reality of making a movie in Australia in 2025. But the most lacking part is the script itself, and Bruce Beresford wrote and directed it. It's clearly quite personal to him, so why does it lack so much emotional weight and punch? The movie's a little too relaxing and low stakes for its own good. And it's honestly a little disappointing to see from such a legendary director who made movies that felt so tactile, so relatable, and so lived in, like Puberty Blues, that later in life he's just not able to strike the same vibe. The movie will thrive on streaming services, I feel, if you're a WA resident or just like seeing local pictures, and also like movies with Brian Brown. I think you should watch it. But if none of this sounds appealing for you, or you're looking for another classic like Puberty Blues, it's not really one of those. A mild effort from a legendary director. 2.5 out of 5 stars I'd give it. Now, before we end the show, I've been writing and painting a lot more than usual, so this is a little Hem Productions update. I'm planning on getting some equipment pretty soon, so hopefully there'll be more videos and stuff releasing by next year. Social media, probably by next month we'll have that up and going, and we'll be able to share the podcast a little more and bring attention to it. Anybody that's listened through this episode, or any of the episodes, thank you very much. I'm not doing this for the clout, I'm doing this for the fun. And so I'm glad you're along the ride with me. Hem Productions is going to be really lit. Well, it's already really lit. I'm really happy about it. And I'm just happy to be able to talk about movies each week on my own accord, you know? It's much better than sitting down and writing and not sharing it with people. I see so many movies, I might as well share it. So that'll be that's a great outro. Let's just leave it like that.